I never thought I'd be the guy to get burned like this, especially not after going through what I did. My name's Mike, and I've been with Jenny for about 8 years now. We met in college, had a pretty good run, or so I thought. She was the kind of girl who always had a witty comment, a sharp tongue, and a way of making everyone around her laugh. Honestly, I loved that about her. She was confident, ambitious, and I'll admit a little bitchy sometimes, but that's what made her her. Then everything changed when I got diagnosed with cancer last year. Suddenly, my world shrank to hospital visits, chemo sessions, and endless nights feeling like I was fighting for my life. Jenny was there most of the time. She'd come to the hospital, hold my hand, pretend to care, but I started noticing cracks in her persona. She'd get impatient, snap at me when I asked for help, and she became distant whenever I was in treatment. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was overwhelmed or scared. Hell, I was too. But then little things started happening that I couldn't ignore. My phone would be left on. The nightstand unlocked, something I usually didn't do, and I'd find texts that didn't add up. Flirty messages, quick exchanges that seemed too intimate for a friend, especially with a guy I knew as my best friend Dave. I'd catch her slipping her phone out of sight when she thought I wasn't looking. Her excuses were swift. "You're paranoid," she'd snap. "It's just work stuff, or I'm talking to my sister." I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the gut feeling that something was wrong only grew stronger. One day, I was in the hospital room, exhausted after a chemo session, and I noticed Jenny's phone buzzing repeatedly. I reached out and grabbed it, mostly out of habit, not expecting much. But what I found made my stomach drop. There were messages, no, more like a string of dirty, explicit texts between her and Dave. They weren't just friendly jokes or quick, "how are you" texts. These were full-on conversations about sex, about sneaking around, about hiding their feelings. The worst part, she was talking about me, about how I was too sick to notice or stop her. That moment shattered something inside me. It was like a punch to the gut, one I didn't see coming. I stared at her, my mind racing. She was sitting across from me, trying to look innocent, but I knew better now. The trust I had in her, in us, was crumbling. I remember feeling numb, like I was in someone else's nightmare. How long had this been going on? Was I just too blind to see it? Or did I want to ignore the signs because losing her would have been too much? The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined. It's one thing to be betrayed when you're healthy, but when you're fighting a battle for your life, it feels like the cruelest kind of punishment. After I found those messages, I just sat there, holding her phone, trying to process what I'd seen. I wasn't even angry at first, just numb. My mind kept circling around the idea that my own wife, the woman I trusted with everything, had been lying right to my face, sneaking around behind my back. I felt like I was in some twisted nightmare. She kept talking about Dave, how they'd meet up, how they'd hide it from me as if I was already dead or irrelevant. That's when the anger kicked in, hot, vicious anger. Not just about the cheating, but about the fact she'd been lying to my face during my most vulnerable months. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how. I was too exhausted, too betrayed to come up with some clever plan. I just blurted out, "Jenny, what the hell is this?" She looked shocked, but then she quickly shifted into her usual defensive mode, rolling her eyes, crossing her arms. "Oh, come on, Mike. You're overreacting. It's nothing, just some stupid messages. You're being paranoid as usual." She spat those words out like they were candy, like it was nothing, but I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I threw her phone back on the bed and stared at her. "How long has this been going on? How long have you been cheating on me with Dave?" Her eyes narrowed and she scoffed. "You're so dramatic. It's just sex, okay? It's not like I love him or whatever you're trying to make this into." She kept lying, spinning her usual bullshit. She said stuff like she was bored, that I was hardly around, that she needed excitement, that I was sick, and she was just trying to get her needs met. I could see the contempt in her eyes, the way she dismissed me like I was some inconvenience rather than her husband who'd been battling cancer and still trying to keep our family together. The thing is, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was just some stupid mistake or that I was overthinking because of the stress. But deep down, I knew better. Her excuses sounded hollow, like she was desperate to justify her actions. I could see her for what she was now, a woman who'd cheat, lie, and then try to brush it off like it was no big deal. That's when I realized that my marriage was a house of cards and her lies were the final blow. The betrayal hit me harder than anything I'd faced with cancer. It made me question everything: the vows we took, the love I thought we shared, the loyalty I'd believed in. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and confusion all at once. It was like my whole world was crashing down around me, and I was just left standing there trying to hold the pieces together. I knew I had to make a choice, whether to forgive her or to cut her out of my life completely. But right now, I was just trying to breathe, trying not to break apart. Because honestly, I didn't know how I was going to move forward, not with her lying next to me, pretending everything was fine while her phone betrayed her secrets. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and pretty much couldn't do anything except replay that moment over and over in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, smug, dismissive, like she thought she could just lie her way out of this. I felt so stupid for ever trusting her, for thinking that maybe, just maybe, she'd be different. That maybe, after everything I'd been through with cancer, I'd finally find some solace in our marriage. Turns out, I was just fooling myself. The worst part was how she acted afterward. She kept pretending like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't been caught in her own web of lies. She'd come home, put on a fake smile, and act like I was overreacting. She'd say things like, "You need to relax, Mike. You're just stressed from the treatment," or "You're imagining things, I swear." But I saw through her every time. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she'd quickly change the subject or dismiss my concerns entirely. It was like she thought she could just lie her way out of it, like her excuses would make everything okay again. And Dave. I found myself obsessively checking his social media, digging into his messages, trying to piece together how long this had been going on. He was supposed to be my best friend, the guy I trusted with my life, and apparently he'd been screwing my wife behind my back for who knows how long. That realization hit harder than anything else. I kept asking myself, why? Why Dave? Why her? Did they think I was so weak I wouldn't find out? Did they think I'd just accept it? The fact that she kept lying made it worse. She'd come up with new stories every time I confronted her, each more ridiculous than the last. First, it was just sex. It doesn't mean anything. Then, we were just bored. It's not like I love him. After that, she said she was just trying to find herself or some bullshit like that. All the while, I saw the contempt in her eyes whenever she thought I wasn't looking. It was like I was some obstacle standing in her way, not someone she loved or cared about anymore. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand the truth, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. That only made her lash out more. Instead, I just sat there, swallowing my pain, trying not to break completely. Honestly, part of me wanted to just leave, walk out that door, and never look back. But I was too exhausted, emotionally drained, and let's be real, I still had hope that maybe somehow I could fix this, or at least find a way to survive it. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to be some fool who let her get away with this. I'd been through enough. I deserved better. But right now, all I could feel was the deep, gnawing ache of betrayal. The worst part was how she kept acting like she didn't care. I'd come home from the hospital exhausted, barely able to keep my eyes open, and she'd just be sitting there on her phone, acting like I wasn't even there. Sometimes she'd throw in a sarcastic comment like, "Wow, you're really not worth the drama, huh?" Or, "Maybe you should focus on getting better instead of snooping through my stuff." Her tone was so dismissive, like I was some inconvenient bug she wanted to swat away. It made me feel sick, like I was fighting for my life but also fighting to keep my marriage intact, and all I got was disrespect and lies in return. One night I finally snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I was lying in bed, too tired to sleep, and I saw her sneaking her phone out of her purse. My instincts kicked in. I grabbed it before she could hide it. She froze like she knew she'd been caught, but then she just shrugged and rolled her eyes. "Seriously, Mike, you're so paranoid," she sneered. I didn't say anything at first. I just scrolled through her messages again. This time, I caught her talking about how she couldn't wait to see Dave. Again, how the sex was amazing, and how she hated how much she was lying to me. That's when the floodgates opened. I felt every bit of that anger, heartbreak, and disgust surge through me like a tidal wave. I looked up at her, trembling, and shouted, "How long has this been going on? How long have you been cheating on me with my best friend?" Her face twisted into a vicious smile. "Oh, please, Mike, get over yourself. It's just sex, remember. It's not like I loved him or anything. You're just jealous because I'm finally getting what I need." Her words cut me deeper than I thought possible. I'd been sick, vulnerable, trying to fight for my life, and she was out there, screwing around with Dave behind my back. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again and again. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about the fact that she'd been lying all along, dismissing my feelings and treating me like I was disposable. For the first time in my life, I felt so utterly alone. I had no choice but to face the reality that the woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had turned into someone I didn't even recognize. And Dave, I couldn't even look at him the same way anymore. I thought he was my friend, but he was just another piece in this messed up game she'd been playing. I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to break everything, to scream and cry and rage all at once. But another part of me knew I had to be smart. I wasn't just some fool to be played with. I had gone through so much already, fighting cancer, fighting for my life, and now I had to fight for my dignity. That night I made a decision. I was done. Done pretending everything was okay. Done pretending she still cared. I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. Whatever came next, I was going to face it. Alone if I had to, but with my pride intact. The mornings after that night were the worst. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, my brain a fog of anger and heartbreak. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was fine while inside I was crumbling. I had to make a decision, and fast. I couldn't keep sharing a bed with someone who barely acknowledged my existence, let alone treat me with respect. So I decided I'd confront her again, but this time with a plan. I needed the proof, the clarity to finally put an end to her lies once and for all. I started digging deeper into her messages, her social media, anything I could find. I was careful, not wanting her to catch me spying. I wanted to catch her in the act, or at least get enough evidence to force her to face the reality. It didn't take long. I found more. Hotel receipts, emails, more explicit texts, things that left no doubt she'd been cheating on me for months, maybe longer. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. Every new piece of evidence made me angrier, more bitter. I started thinking about how she'd lied to my face, how she'd dismissed my fears, sneered at my illness, all while sneaking around behind my back. Finally, I knew I had enough. I waited for her to come home from work, heart pounding in my chest. I wanted her to see the pain in my eyes, to understand just how much she'd destroyed. When she stepped inside, I blocked her path. "We need to talk," I said, voice cold and steady. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her, but I pressed on. "I know everything, Jenny, about you and Dave, about the lies, the sex, the secret little meetings. I've seen the messages. I know what you've been doing behind my back." Her face twisted in that familiar sneer. "Oh, come on, Mike. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just being paranoid." Shook my head. "No, I'm not. I've got the proof. You've been cheating on me. While I was fighting for my life, you were out there screwing my best friend. How could you do this? How could you lie to my face for so long?" Her lips curled into a smirk and she crossed her arms. "Look, if you're going to accuse me of everything, maybe I should just leave. You're not exactly the easiest person to deal with lately, you know." That was her way of dismissing the whole thing, acting like she hadn't just stabbed me in the back. I felt my hands clench into fists. I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. I told her to get out, to leave my house, but she just laughed. That laugh, cold, bitter, mocking, stayed with me long after she stormed out. I was left standing there alone, with the evidence of her lies staring back at me. Part of me wanted to break everything, to scream until I couldn't breathe, but I knew I had to stay calm. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful road. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next, but I knew I wouldn't let her get away with it. Not without consequences. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Everything was a blur, my house, my thoughts, even my own reflection. I had so many feelings swirling inside me. Anger, betrayal, sadness, but mostly a profound sense of loss. I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the person I trusted with my life, and I'd lost the illusion that I was somehow enough. The cancer, the treatments, the pain. It all seemed insignificant compared to the pain of knowing she'd thrown everything away for a moment of lust and selfishness. I knew I had to decide what I was going to do about it. I could try to work it out, but honestly, I didn't see how. Trust was shattered beyond repair. Every memory we shared had been tainted by lies and betrayal. I didn't want to be that guy who clings to a sinking ship, so I chose to walk away. I filed for divorce, legally ending what was left of our marriage. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I knew I had to put myself first now. I couldn't keep living in a house where I was constantly reminded of her betrayal. That process, going through the divorce, was a nightmare. She fought me every step of the way, trying to justify her actions, saying I was overreacting or that she deserved a second chance. But I saw her for what she was, a woman who'd lied to my face, who'd used me and discarded me like trash. I realized that love isn't about just sticking around through sickness and health. It's about loyalty, respect, and honesty. And she had none of that left for me. Now, I'm trying to rebuild my life. I still have scars, emotional scars, and I probably always will. But I've learned something valuable. People reveal who they truly are when you're at your lowest. Jenny's true colors came out not during the good times, but during my fight for survival. That was the real betrayal. I still wonder what I could have done differently, but I also know I can't change the past. What I can do is learn from it. So here's my final take: trust your gut. If something feels off, pay attention. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how much you want to believe in someone. And if you find out your partner is cheating, especially someone you once loved and trusted, don't give them the benefit of the doubt. Cut your losses, pick yourself up, and keep moving forward. Because in the end, self-respect and honesty are what matter most. And if someone can betray you like that, they don't deserve your love or your loyalty anymore.